Good evening. It is the next day from the last, part of exploring Gatineau. And the only reason I'm filming this in the evening is because, it's a bit of a... I was taking a bit of a more relaxed morning just to eat and then find a restroom. And, in trying to find Wi-Fi and edit the last video, that just took a little bit. And then uploading it. And as well as charging my device. So, today, I am very much on a complete mission to find a showering station if I possibly can. Because, I don't know if you can see it from here. That motel motel that was right across the road from, Le Club Pigalle, the strip club. They told me it was completely booked last night, so there was no rooms for me to available for me to quickly just go in and wash up. Same with the motel that's right behind me here. I was shit out of luck last night. But looked it up on the map. In the downtown area, a ways up, there is some gyms. Now, one is open 24 hours, according to their site. So hopefully they have something for me to use just to clean myself up. The other one, which was closer than that 24-hour one, is located in, I guess it's a well-known shopping mall. I don't remember the name. Or I really didn't even bother, I guess, to really try and retain it. But it's the largest shopping center in... definitely in the entirety of the downtown portion of Gatineau, and it might also be the largest one in all of Gatineau. But right now it's closed. It actually closed approximately, if I can see on my watch, 5 minutes ago. So, yeah. And if neither of those, the one in the mall is closed. If the 24-hour one, or there's another one that's close by that 24-hour one that isn't 24 hours in terms of a gym, but if I get to it in time, maybe I could ask if that 24-hour one doesn't have a showering station. But if not that, there's also, in fact, I'll do it before getting down there, there should be another motel along the main roadway here of the city. And, I'll just see. Sorry, I'm a little flustered today. Sun's been quite bright. Been basking in it quite a bit for most of the day. Just thinking about a bunch of stuff. And if not that, I will just head down to that other strip club towards the western end of the city anyway, because I want to explore down there. And, so I'm not even going to bother to call them. If I end up sleeping down there tonight, so be it. But, let's get going. So, I think I will just first, as I get some, just surrounding footage, footage of my surroundings, I won't apologize, but I'll just reword something I said in the last video towards the end, particularly when I was talking about people of older generations, the elderly becoming of those who do, unfortunately, because of trauma in this world, become very bitter and very, dismissive, and basically just give up on any form of what would be considered idealistic or optimistic, more so, thinking. I know it came off most likely as ageist, what I said, and it definitely was, to a large degree, ageist. And I'm sorry for that. I should have clarified. Oh, what do you know? There's that other motel. Didn't even notice it until I got a little closer. Should have clarified that, I meant certain amounts of older generations, as unfortunately it affects many who become very, very pessimistic. And along with that, on that topic, I would also like to reword and just fix or remodel what I said. I'll just go with that wording. I can't find the proper wording right now. Goddamn anomic aphasia. Okay, for when I was talking about people becoming pessimists, cynics, misanthropists, problematic pragmatists, I said that it is because of societal trauma, which I think a majority of it is, yeah. Those philosophical beliefs are very much, and as far as I'm concerned, how they've come about, rooted in trauma. That's hypocritical in me in some regard because of what I said in my scientific proposal videos. In terms of subconscious optimism, I didn't want to generalize to how people form to have those philosophical beliefs. I will state that yes, there are those who have critically thought their way to those beliefs. I do believe that. Or maybe have become familiarized with it during much of the childhood because maybe parental figures that held those specific, moral values and philosophies. But I will state that a majority of people who actually believe in those philosophies have obtained them because of societal trauma, as far as I'm concerned, and interpersonal trauma caused by societal factors. So yes, I do believe many people who come to those conclusions have come to them because of psychological trauma, and then further leading into psychological disorder. So I just, fix a bit of my statement there. Okay, this was relatively quick, didn't know it was this close, so I'm gonna ask. Let's hope they have something available just for me to quickly freshen up in, and then I will continue moving down towards downtown Gatineau. Alright, so I went and spoke to the reception at that motel, which is conveniently located right next, literally neighboring to another motel, and this one might be located directly next to another one, I cannot tell. So this strip of road seems to be, high in the hospitality market, I guess. But anyway, so they told me that theirs was all booked up, and they also told me that pretty well everywhere in the city is most likely going to be all booked up, because if you saw the last part at the beginning when I was making my way to the connecting bridge, the northernmost connecting bridge between Ottawa and Gatineau, there was a heavy, ice storm that blew through the Ottawa-Gatineau region. And after talking with some people I know over the phone, apparently it was like that even down in Toronto, because the storm had made its way down there. So it knocked out a whole slew of power grids, and people were without heat. And if my judgment is correct, that's probably why most people, if they've flocked to motels for the heating. So, if they can afford it. I don't know, if that's a little strange, considering I would have thought that the generators for these buildings too would have been affected by that, if so, but I'm not sure. Maybe they have better backup generators, but anyway. So now, of course, the person could have been lying and just using it as a means to get me to move on, but I'm obviously not going to assume that. But for this one, just to check, to maybe make sure, with the past 3 motels, including that one that I just went to, I've been upfront with them and literally just said, I'm going to be frank, I'm a homeless nomad. And, I was just wondering if you had an open available room that I could just quickly, go in and shower and then leave. Just that. Oh, wow. Okay. From close to downtown Gatineau, you can see downtown Ottawa. I did not know that. Oh, I guess we're going up on more of an incline. Oh, neat. But anyway, I'm going to try a bit of a different method to just see. I'm not going to do anything if I find out anything. Whether these places are just purely being, have classist prejudice towards me, or what, I'm just going to see. Instead of starting new social tactic, instead of starting with I'm just going to be frank, I'm a homeless traveler, I'm going to start with, hey, are you all booked up? And then see what they say. And then go into, I'm just going to be frank with you, I'm a homeless traveler. I know that's a bit deceptive, the manipulation tactic of deception. But I don't know by this point. I'm just going to see. Okay. So, I'll talk to them and then report back with my gathered information. Alright. I swear I was literally in there for the span of 25 seconds in the main office. So what happened was, I went in, they said hello, and I said hello, and I asked, hey, by any chance, are you all booked up? And they said to me, oh, this is no longer a motel. This is a shelter for the homeless. What a coincidence. A pleasant coincidence. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's incredibly convenient. I'm homeless. So, they said to go to room 120. Oh, damn. Well, I'll find it. I'll knock on every door if I have to. Either 124 or 127 to, talk to the social workers to see about living arrangements. Well, I'm not staying for living arrangements. I am just looking for a shower. So, okay, that's really convenient. Any semi-homeless or full-blown homeless people or just nomads in the city of Gatineau or close by it in Quebec or on the Ottawa side in Ontario get to hear this this what was supposed to be, it was originally a motel. Number that's in Québécois French, so address 175, I guess, and it's on a, well, I don't know the name of this road, but it's in the downtown area of Gatineau, because I've just passed out of the invisible border of the Remendaz district, somewhere over there. So, yeah, the downtown area, by the big shopping mall, whatever its name is. Okay, that was very convenient. I'm gonna go actually see if I can talk to these people. So you can probably tell by the somber look on my face that the homeless shelter here and my newfound prospects of getting a shower quickly dissolved. So I went to room 124, talked to the intake workers there, and I was giddy with joy and asked, is there a place here that I can potentially shower in? And they were like, nope. And I was like, nope. And they were like, nope. Well, what do you mean, nope? Well, by nope, I mean that we have no station for showering. It's purely just for housing. If you want to have a shower at a location that our organization, well, is operating out of, you'll have to go to I folded it up. This address, if we will ever focus, in the Hall District in southern Gatineau. You remember the Hall District, guys? The place that I explored in my very first exploring Gatineau video. The night that I also went through Byward Market for the first time in Ottawa. About, well, now, around 5 months ago, maybe 4.5. So that's very inconvenient. Well, yeah, now you know what, this is actually probably this should be expected by this point. It was too good to be true. It was very much too good to be true. Nothing in life ever goes as you expected. For the most part. Despite what our 5 inherent subconscious desires may think, nothing ever does. Okay. To that 24-hour gym it is. And here we are, the downtown area. And here's the shopping center, which is currently called Le Promendaz. Similar to the district down there. Interesting. And from this vantage point, you can actually get a pretty good view of Quebec's rolling hills, the lowland, well, the lower mountainous regions from here. You can see it just below the setting sun, and over on the northern end as well. But sadly, you can also notice, as you can see behind there, some rather what appear to be well-maintained apartment complexes. And again, pseudo-segregation afoot, I smell, because that's sharp. Even the actual, well, seem to be the shopping plazas all along this strip of road, and also the mall itself, sharp contrast, an immediate divide to quite a large portion of the lower Promendas district. In terms of infrastructure, just it's well, it's quite night and day, at least to my eyes. So let's keep heading along this way. Just to now go to that gym, only for them to tell me that they have no showering station, then for me to travel into the night down to the strip club in the western end of the downtown area called Bar 77, only for them to tell me that they have nothing either. Well, that's mildly sarcastic. Okay. So, couple interesting things happened to me this morning. Mainly, when I got back to the main strip of road from that park, the skate park I decided to sleep in that subdivision, I went to a certain mega corporation branch. I'm not going to say what store it was because I don't want this employee to potentially lose their position. But I got there to use the washroom because I needed to. I'd already taken a piss outside because I couldn't find a spot to do so. So, in order to make a bowel movement, I figured I was not going to do that in the lovely, lovely park there, especially with such little shading. So, I made my way back to that strip of road, went in there, asked if I could, well, if they were open, but apparently they weren't at the moment, and they also said their washroom was closed off. So I went back outside, decided to think for a second, and I just sat on their property, used their free Wi-Fi just to check some things, and then the employee comes out, or tells me to come to the door. They spoke in terms of their English in metathesis, and well, I don't speak Québécois French or European French of any kind. I am not a passive speaker, not semi-fluent, and absolutely nowhere near fluent. So, through this conversation, they pointed to this heaping pile of trash at the back of the store, and I was confused. And they said, "You pick up trash, you pick up over there, I give you pizza. I give you a slice of pizza." And I was like, "What?" I'm sorry, I don't completely understand what you would like me to do. And they just said, "You want a slice of..." Basically, what they said was, "You want a slice of pizza." I'm not gonna imitate their metathesis. "You want a slice of pizza. I'll give it to you for free if you pick up all that trash, throw it into the dumpster. And I said rather dryly, no. I don't work here, one. And two, I had to use the washroom. And at that point, it had entered into the T- phase. So, also no. And they said, well, you don't need pizza of any kind? And I just said, no, that's all right. So, no, thank you. And they were just like, and they brushed me off and were like, okay, whatever. And went back inside. So, from what I can tell, that was quite insulting, and that was absolutely subtle classism. So, probably could see this, because it was literally right in front of the store. Saw my attire, and was like, yep, they're desperate for food, so do that labor, and I'll give it to you. And I said no. Now, here's the thing. Despite me being anarcho-communist, affiliated with, well, complete desolation of set social structuring, and my absolute despise for capitalism and fascism and just authoritarianism of all kinds. Yeah, well, it's definitely, this person was just definitely, I don't think, okay, obviously I don't at all think from my psychoanalysis there that they meant any sort of maliciousness from it. They weren't doing it out of malice. They're just very agitated and very, very, well, just, what's a way I could put it? Because as far as I'm concerned, being malevolent is also on a basis of ignorance. They were very, well, naive and ignorant is, I guess I could say naively ignorant, but that'd kind of be, I guess you'd call it an oxymoron. If I'm even using that grammatical terminology correctly. They were just, okay, they were benevolently ignorant. I'll say that. But, anyway, so I don't think they did it out of any sort of, like spite towards me. And just thinking, oh, here's some free labor. Now, here's the thing, though. Despite my affiliations with being in terms of my redesigning of the political spectrum, I would consider myself to be a rising leftist. If you saw my implementations video and the diagram with the political phi/political fe, well, then for me, rising leftist. Okay, despite all that, I have many issues with, and I'm not of the mentality of what's known in, I guess, I'd say, a lot of the far leftists, or supposedly far leftists, and absolutely anti-capitalist community known as the fuck you, pay me attitude. I don't agree with that when I'm not joking or making satire. When I know I made long ago, well now a year ago, the skit about retail. That's what it was, a skit that emulated my feelings of things at the time. Still in many regards does, obviously. But I'm not of the actual, in all seriousness, the attitude of just give me money and shove off. I don't like just if I can help it, I don't like completely consciously dismissing people if it's avoidable. So, let me actually cross here and then continue talking. Okay, back to what I was saying. I'm not of that mentality. Or I don't like to be. But the reasons, as I stated before, why I wasn't going to do that, I was preoccupied with other things at the moment. And also because, well, it didn't work there, but that's really, that's idiotic of me and hypocritical. Besides the point, the person's, disposition to me, turned me off from that. And they were very just, more like, they were very agitated, clearly, and they were very just, as I said, dismissive and very, overly, I guess, assertive, I'll say, or more confident. Just please, just do that if you want food. Well, no, that is a classist attitude as far as I'm concerned. Classist belief that just, I'll give you food if you do that manual labor. That, it wouldn't be degrading to me if not in parallel with the classism. It would have been fine. And also, though, if I was going to do that, I would be doing it for either because I wanted to help them out, if they genuinely needed assistance, like if they were short-staffed and they're like, hey, I know you don't work here, but do you mind giving us a hand with cleaning up this garbage that blew over from the dumpster? And I've been like, okay, sure, no problem. Or, if I needed it, I would have done it for some amount of cash or payment. At least as of right now. But I would have done it more so for the first option I just listed of actually genuinely seeing if they need assistance. Moreover, again, not in accompaniment with the classist discriminatory belief. So that happened. Just keep moving here. Actually, I'll just move out of the way quickly. But in some better news, later in the day, I decided to eat at a Vietnamese restaurant right across from this corporate branch, a small business, and a seafood crispy stir fry, and it was delicious. And I tried a avocado milkshake for the very first time. I've never had it before, and theirs was quite good. There was obviously some amount of, there was a bit of refined sugar in it, because they probably couldn't afford to put more authentic ingredients in just for consistency-wise. But either way, it was delicious. And while I was in the washroom, someone apparently, after I was done eating, paid for my meal. And they left once I came out. And when I went to the front desk, the waiter just said, someone paid for your meal. And I was like, oh, really? That is incredibly generous. I wish I could have thanked them. And then one of the customers was like, yeah, man, that doesn't happen often. You're very lucky. And so, yeah, I am in that regard. Saved a bit. I would have gladly paid, but, well, that was very nice. Very, very generous. Now, I don't know why they paid for... I don't know why they paid for my meal. I'm not going to make a concrete assumption. It could have been maybe because with this behind me, maybe looked more in more of a desperate financial situation, or maybe they were just feeling very, well, philanthropic this day. I don't know, but well, I don't know. That's it. That's where that ends. I don't know what more I was gonna say at that. But regardless, still incredibly nice. So, oh, actually, well, I should probably do this. In the last clip, just rethinking it right now, when I was at the converted homeless shelter over there in the downtown area to the south, I think I came off a bit more, well, ungrateful than, well, I should have been. I genuinely do thank the intake workers for their help. They gave me an address for a place that would have a shower, but of course I can't get to it. It's in southern Gatineau, far, far away from here. So, well, that's a no-go. But to any fellow homeless or anyone in a desperate housing situation who's in the area watching this, just go there if you need shelter, obviously. Not for showering, though. If you want to shower, go to, at least as of posting this in 2023, in April. I can't obviously tell for the future. Open up with one hand, please. That address. I'll let you jot it down. Okay. And that's in Hull. It's a little confusing, I guess, considering, well, not really confusing for me, but I believe I mentioned this in my first part of exploring Gatineau. The city of Gatineau used to be in its entirety called Hull, Hull. All the way up until, I believe, the 1940s or 50s. One of the two. It was a much smaller city then. But in terms of its industrial boom and also its expansion of suburbanism, and now moving into the modern day of post-suburbanism, well, it had its boom at the same time as Ottawa did. I am not clear on the history exactly of when, but oh, what do you know? There's the gym. Okay, I'll get to that. But the city used to be called Hull. Then they changed the name for reasons that I don't know, but it might be because Hull seems to be more of an English style name, and while the predominant ethnic group of the southernmost part of the province is Québécois, they might have done it to change it to a more, well, Québécois French originated name, or just of French origins of some kind. I don't know what significance the name Gatineau has, but They then, though, renamed whatever the southernmost district of the city that borders on the Quebec side. It borders the downtown area of the capital city of Ottawa. On the Ontario side, they renamed it to Hull, the Hull district, the name that the city used to adorn. And apparently the island that the southernmost district, Hull, is on is also called Isle de Hull. I don't know if I'm saying the word for island in French correct. No clue. But yeah, that's just a bit more of that's just some interesting geographical historical trivia, I guess. Okay. Holiday Inn. I forget if they're a moderate corporation still or if they've expanded into a mega hotel corporation. I don't know if I want to go there and ask for a shower. I will see if the gym does not work out. Okay. I will get back to you after I see what's up down there. All right. So, that went fantastically. If you can't tell, they had a showering station, and I washed up, and that feels a lot better. But also, if you're taking a notice to the positioning of the sun compared to the previous clips that I recorded for this video, you'll notice that it's, well, at a different angle in the sky, because it's the next morning of the day that I had shot the last clips on. So what happened was, I got in there. Everyone who I spoke to was genuinely very attentive and very friendly, and not like I'm saying that they wouldn't be initially, but anyway, because I don't fully know them. But I got in there, and they told me they had a showering station. I had a shower. I also sat in the sauna that they had for a bit. It was a dry sauna, no added water or anything like that. It was more heated coil powered. But and then, seeing as the gym is open 24 hours, I just decided to stay in there for the night. And I was the only customer there amongst 3 other employees for, well, majority of the early morning. And I was nodding in and out of sleep, and I did try to sleep, and I did sleep for a considerable amount of time in there. Not comfortably, necessarily, but still, I did. So, yeah. That. Okay, and I think I'm noticing there's another gym right across the road. Okay, so, alright, this area seems to be very popular in terms of, well, the physical activity industry, whereas over down in Promendaz, more motel businesses. So that makes that one there, the 24-hour one, Gym Max is its name, and then the one that's in the giant mall. I don't remember what it's called. And yeah, The place itself was incredibly well kept, and well, I don't know if it seems to be a singular store, so I would say small business, but technically, well, I don't know, considering, well, some obvious options are that the owners pour all their, or a majority of their finance into maintaining the place. I'm not going to comment on what the actual employees make, because I have no knowledge to that. Still doesn't make the system they operate in good, but I don't know. Or they may also do that, and they may have a small monopoly on the entirety of the fitness market around here, if through advertising and also just, well, along with that, how much profit they're able to generate for their business compared to the surrounding gyms. Well, they might have a monopoly, I don't know, despite them being a singular business, because that does happen. It's not as common as mass expansionism for mega corporations, as examples, and moderate corporations, but it happens. So, I'm feeling physically a lot better now, but that is not the end of my cleanliness search through, well, the city of Gatineau right now. So, now that my body is clean, the clothes that I was wearing, which I have been wearing since I left the Orleans district of Ottawa, well, I'm going to now try and find a laundromat to clean them. Preferably a coin-operated laundromat. Well, actually try to find, more so actually go to, because I was looking on the map, and apparently, what a coincidence, and quite convenient, there's a laundromat right next to that strip club, Bar 77, that I was talking about. And I figured, well, I'm heading down that way anyway, because I want to actually explore that portion of the city before I get going. And I'll explain my method of travel right now before setting off. So, yeah, I just thought I'd check that out as well. I don't think I'm going to gain any sort of lap dance. I'll just watch the performances on stage. Not because I'm scarred from what happened last time, well, literally yesterday. I obviously don't feel comfortable with it, and morally I am upset at myself. But, not because of getting a lap dance, but because of, go watch the other video, I'm not going to explain it, just the whole scenario. But I will just watch this time. So, yeah, and I'll just talk about a few other things, I guess, on the way. Stuff I wanted to address in the last part. Alright. It's a very, very beautiful day out. Let's hope it stays that way. Okay. So, made a bit of a length up. And I've been picking up on something that I don't really like. So, speaking of in the last clip of, well, expansionism, out of all, from what I've been noticing so far in my now, 2 days being in Gatineau, now just spending a little time in downtown Gatineau here, Out of all the major cities I've visited in recent years, and more specifically along these travels of mine right now, including, well, starting with Toronto, then moving to Peterborough, then to Ottawa, and now, well, here, Gatineau, from what I'm looking at, in terms of mass corporate expansion and privatization, it seems to be riddled with it. Like, it's the worst case out of all four of those major cities that I mentioned. It's the worst one in terms of, well, corporate overtake is what I'm trying to say, at least from what I'm noticing. Or more specifically, the downtown areas of the four cities, including Gatineau that I mentioned. Well, it seems to be, in terms of the downtown area, the worst. Well, there's as far as I'm concerned, from what I'm seeing, there's a lot of brands and company logos that I'm recognizing that I don't like are a familiar. I don't like the fact that they're a familiar sight to me at all. Can't see it there. That's a Best Buy. Apparently there's a brick store somewhere. Adonis. That's from what I know, because I believe I've seen advertisements for it online. It's a, well, provincial wide in terms of Quebec, well, grocery retailer. And I think it might predominantly just be in Quebec. Same with a few of the other ones I'm noticing. Oh, you have Bima over there. Yep, Chevrolet car dealers. Yeah, it looks like it's the worst of all. I'm not talking about, like, visually. Visually, Gatineau looks, at least in this area, it's very nice. It looks very, very nice. And even the more infrastructurally crippled area of Promendaz, there was quite a few nice elements to it. At least just for me, communally. But, well, I'm just saying it's unsettling, honestly. It is. For me. I feel like I'm standing in a, well, that's a good way to put it. I feel like I'm standing in a CEO's wasteland dream. Or a CEO's heavenly dream in a wasteland for the average Joe. A wasteland of, well, siphoning away financial currency that the working class uses to negotiate for resources to survive, and so does the entire world, in terms of, well, obviously the elites do too. It's what the world runs on right now. So, yeah, it's depressing. Quite. I don't give a damn, in terms of, though, infrastructurally looking very pretty, I don't give a damn about the flashy atmosphere in terms of design. It's just, well, it's a facade. So, yeah, that's just one observation I've made so far in this area. It's, well, the place is riddled with bourgeoisie aesthetic, is the best way I can just completely sum it up. Okay. Making my way through downtown, walking slow, pulling a giant metal cart behind my ass. Okay. So once again, just like down there with those apartment complexes, I'm noticing that the ones over here, and also just the housing structures in general, are looking far more externally well maintained. The properties, if I could actually film it and not point at the railroad tracks, they're looking far more well kept on the opposite end of the main road strip that runs through downtown Gatineau compared to a majority of the business area of the Promenades district on the opposite side of the giant shopping center. Which actually, to go back to what I said about the downtown area of Gatineau here, having a lot of major corporations, as you can clearly tell, a lot of, branches of larger business enterprises. It's becoming apparent to me now that a lot more of the mainly it seemed to be struggling smaller businesses were on that strip of road, the main strip of road that ran through Promenades down a ways, compared to here where it's, the most I'm seeing is mainly mega corporate to maybe a bit of moderate corporations. Yes, there's obviously some small businesses scattered here and there, but that's exactly it. It's like barely any. I'm not seeing a bit of a cluster of them. I don't know if this theater here, Cinema 9, would be considered a small business. I'm not sure. It's showing films that I've never heard of. Well, it's interesting actually, just a bit of a side note. Quebec has kind of almost an entirely separate film and entertainment industry entirely compared to the rest of Canada, where a lot of most of the other provinces and the 3 territories, we get a lot of, entertainment from, imported from America, and also we have a fair share of our own films that are displayed, many indie films as well, say at like TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, or VIFF, I believe it'd be called, Vancouver International Film Festival. But Quebec, actually, it's almost entirely separate. I think there's the Montreal, a film festival in Montreal, but they have almost an entirely separate catalog, especially in the film industry, of movies and things of the sort. I have never seen a Québécois film production. Well, I've never seen I've played video games, obviously, that have had production teams in Quebec, but I've never seen a project, one specifically mainly set in the province of Quebec, and also that's part of the larger, Québécois film industry. So that's just an interesting side note. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Yeah, once I get over to more of the western half of downtown, towards getting into suburbia, I'm going to, once I'm done that, and depending on where I sleep tonight, if I make it back over here today, either today or tomorrow, I'm going to go have a look-see through there and over there, just to see if my, see if it confirms some of my suspicions of what appears to be very apparent pseudo-segregation. So, or as I call it, pseudo-segregation, as I explained before in previous videos. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna keep walking up a ways now. Well, that's a change in scenery. First time I've actually, well, in terms of land structure, in person, seen houses far up on a major hill like that. If I would, my hand really does not like to point the lens at the actual target area. I've seen, obviously, in the countryside when I was younger and initially lived here in Canada before moving to the United States. Obviously, there were hilly regions and I saw houses on hills, but not as, well, not as elevated as that. And as I said yesterday, this vantage point in the city, you can see what begins to be the Quebec rolling hills. They're very high. So, okay. Slight detour. Maybe I won't continue just walking down this long main strip of road and actually go down that way, and then see if I can cross over to the suburbs, or the suburban area that the strip club is in, and the dry cleaner. So, yeah, I'll just check on the map and see if that's a good option. And, well, if you're watching the video full through, or if you made it this far and you watch the next clip, you'll know what the hell I chose to do. So, yeah. So just before I actually get going down this road, which is apparently just called Cité Road, yeah, more megacorps. Walmart. I've never heard of Super C before. And even though it's got a rather large, well, building structure, I'm not going to make a judgment call as to whether it's a megacorp or moderate or not. I don't know. But even so, Walmart. I've heard of it. Wait, is that a Staples? Yeah, that looks like a Is that a Staples? I can't see. The design looks like a Staples. I'll have to get closer. Also, train tracks and, well, half melted murky ice. I hope that the train is out of commission for the season, and also, in terms of my travel plans, that destroys any prospects that I might have been considering for taking a train, at least from here, out of Gatineau. So, okay, on we go. Alright, not even literally a few meters up, and I've stumbled upon yet another mega corporate conglomerate, and also a corporate head office. Before in Exploring Ottawa Part 13, it was Giant Tiger, and now it's Slush Puppie. So, for anyone who's international, actually, I don't think they're also an international corporation. Slush Puppie is, well, a very much artificially manufactured flavonoid infused slushie corporation. They make, well, slushie drinks that you can, and pretty well in all gas stations, larger corporate gas stations to smaller ones, even just family-owned small business gas stations, you can find a Slush Puppie machine just in them, just churning and churning the damn absolute cancer-inducing fucking and digestive tract destroying drink. You can find it in all of them. It's everywhere. And this apparently is their headquarters. Right here in Gatineau. Right now, I don't know, it's right next to this building, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. From looking inside, it looks to be some sort of maybe recreational center. But, yeah. I have nothing more to say. I am just blown away by, like, within how much close of a proximity all these massive corporate branches, and also right now one main headquarters office, are next to each other. Yeah. Nothing more to say. Fuck y'all. That's it. This is the second rusted pyramid-esque designed public art structure that I've seen in this area, the other being right by that building there. I have no clue what it's supposed to signify. It's neat though. This is just not gonna lie, don't really know what this designed park is supposed to, if it's supposed to be a park. It's got sand and some sparsely laid stonework, and then this giant ass concrete canopy. I don't know. Maybe it's a park that's in production. I don't know. It's sandwiched in between these fucking, Slush Puppie HQ and whatever this corporate office is. I have no clue. And this building in construction, and also what apparently is a cultural center of some kind. I don't know if it's just to highlight Québécois culture in, the city here, but I don't know. And there's over there what appears to be a protest flag and sign of some kind. At least that's what it appears to be. I can't read it. Let me actually get closer to it. All right, there. That's the symbol. No idea what it means. And there's the sign. If anyone watching this speaks either fluently or semi-fluently speaks Québécois French, if you could, please translate in the comments section, because I am completely lost in translation. Okay, apparently you're a governmental office. Are you Gatineau City Hall? No, I don't think so. There's no way you're, this is the downtown area, but this is more, given the layout, it's more tucked away towards the northwestern end, not really closer to the city center. Well, whatever part of the government you represent, I despise you. So, one way or another, you're all the same. Okay. What the hell? These are incredibly well-maintained apartment complexes and housing units all along this entire row of land here and going over there. Again, far behind the main strip of road through the downtown. What the fuck? No, seriously, this is like the largest cluster of well-maintained building structures for housing just in terms of like compact wise, in terms of numbers that I've communally seen anywhere in this entire region. I've been in the Ottawa-Gatineau region, especially compared to anything I saw in Ottawa, including in the new Edinburgh district, which was known for more upper middle class to far wealthier rich homes, or, well, in terms of people who live there, the income. Okay, when I get in Wi-Fi, I'm going to do some more researching into this area once I get down to, well, bar 77. Well, if they have Wi-Fi, I'm going to do some looking up of this area. Oh, and what do you know? More big companies. Well, actually, Rona, from what I think, well, you might be moderate in terms of, well, in terms of location expansion. Your expansiveness just moderate, but still problematic as far as I'm concerned. Desjardins. Home Depot. And I don't even want to fucking know what plantation or factory you are, or who your bosses are. Oh, actually, wait. No, you're another government facility. I can't see the sign from here because the sun is blinding my eyes. I will look in a minute. I guess I should talk a bit more. Okay, there's no button to cross. I should probably talk a bit more about, well, the city of Gatineau itself. So, for anyone who knows Canadian geography, you might have just are somewhat familiar with the fact that Gatineau is the neighboring city to Ottawa, north of it, on the Quebec side. But most people, even, well, domestically, most Canadians, probably who don't live in Gatineau, don't know diddly squat about Gatineau unless they actually live in Quebec. And even then, it might be, well, iffy. What the hell? Oh! Oh, great. Oh, great. That's what's going in here. A fucking condo building. That's nice. That's nice. Oh, you're not turning. I'm jaywalking. Fuck it. First, let me see what you are. Provision storage facility. Service entrance. Provision. Okay, provision for what exactly? Oh, wait. Oh, has affiliations to the Library and Archival Building of Canada, which I was at in Ottawa, which is where I sat, well, the court hearing for the Freedom Convoy organizers versus the Canadian government was, that I sat in on. Okay, so you have ties to that. I don't know what specific ties, but right now I don't care. So, most people, I would say, who don't live in Gatineau, or maybe even just the Ottawa-Gatineau region, know nothing about the city. Well, from my research and my observations now exploring here further into the main hub of the city, it seems to very much be more so of just a layover city, just like a passerby location for anyone in terms of work commuting into Ottawa, or anyone domestically or even, I guess, internationally coming maybe from Montreal. Well, anyone who is traveling, for a second I thought you were rolling, traveling from further inwards in Quebec to get to the capital city of Canada, Ottawa. So bonjour. I am not picking up on what is more of a first-hand formal common greeting in Québécois French yet, whether it's allô or it's bonjour, as you can probably tell. So it's more of just, for most people coming through vehicle-wise, it's just basically a pit stop city to get into Ottawa. Now, personally, I think there are nice attractions to it, just like, well, geographically, there's beautiful things to see in it, and many not so beautiful things. But for most average people, I would say they don't care about that. They just, which is probably the reason why the hotel industry, just in terms of location, well, I'm not going to say is booming here because, well, financial subjugation, but is very popular here, I'll say, I guess. That's what it appears to be, why it's popular for a lot of, well, either small businesses, as more down in Promendes or in the downtown area, the mega corporate to moderate hotel branches, to just place them right in the more bustling areas, I guess. It's far more than I saw in terms of hospitality, in terms of the hospitality industry in downtown Ottawa or the Vanier district of Ottawa, or even going into Gloucester. It's far more. So that's, I guess, just, well, that seems to be why there's such a high density of hotels and motels that I have passed. What else was I going to say about Gatineau? Oh, well, I guess if you want to equate it to another location within Canada, you could call Gatineau, I guess, well, in terms of tourism, it's very lacking. I don't think, like, both domestically and foreign visitors, I don't think there's a high amount of them coming in to see the sights of Gatineau. But I guess you could, in terms of just, well, it being a layover city of getting into Ottawa, you could equate it to, like, what to some degree, but a lesser extent, I would say, though, for these cities, like what Mississauga and Oshawa are for Toronto. Now, I do think, though, maybe not foreign tourism, but I definitely think domestic tourist-wise, Mississauga and Oshawa have, well, a far bigger tourism industry than Gatineau does. Because, well, given just its being a part of the Greater Toronto Area, well, pretty well, there's some amount of lively tourism from living in Toronto for, well, now, let me count. about 7 years now. Well, before I left. No, wait, fuck, counting wrong. 6 years. Sorry, I left in 2022. It's 2023. So, from what I've seen, all of the GTA, all the cities that surround Toronto, Oshawa, Markham, Vaughan, Brampton, Mississauga, Burlington, and I'd fair to say even Hamilton have far higher domestic tourism rates than Gatineau does here in Quebec. Just from what I've seen. Oh. That's an interesting little tucked away site that I did not notice. Just a little pond. Pond type, is it a river or a pond? Well, it bends around. Huh? Interesting. And this suburb appears to be more of standardized. Is that another Walmart? No, that's not another Walmart, is it? Okay, I'm seeing... Okay, I can't read that sign too well. Let me get over there a bit further and just see. You privatized the pond. You privatized this little ass pond, which from the looks of it only gets a little bit higher, maybe because of the winter season when the snow actually starts to melt. And you also felt the need to state that the pond was privatized and that no one could pretty well even set one little toe on the fucking ice. I don't know if it was you who did that or any of you ye fuckers who did that, but God, you're extremely psychologically ill. Fucking private. 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 Is that the sign? I don't know. And private. Oh, and also private. Private. And private. Fucking that small. Needed signage to say it's private. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, and of course there's a fucking petrol gas station over there. Of course there is. Because this entire area is just infested with mass gentrification and mass fucking corporate expansionism. Of course it is. God fuckity damn. Alright, I was wrong, so it's not a Walmart branch, thank God. That might actually be a daycare. And it appears to be, finally, some amount of small businesses in one cluster in the area. At least to some degree. That looks like a library over there. That's obviously a restaurant. Salvatore's. Maybe it's an El Salvadorian restaurant, I'm not sure. But, sadly, if you look over here, just literally up the road a bit, that's, well, very, very short-lived. Very short-lived. Oh, again, at least there's some good views of the hills. And speaking of hills, that is an interesting first look at what will be, if I continue on out of the city towards Laval, the more mountainous roadways. I wonder if it's faster to get to, well, the strip club that I'm trying to get to going that way. It might be worth taking, but I'll look on the map again and just see. You have to be kidding me. Metro Plus. What in the heck is that supposed to mean? What the hell is different about this branch of yours compared to all your other massively exploitative branches? No, seriously, I've never seen that before. Metro Plus. Is that a new... Well, this looks like it's... Actually, maybe it was just recently built. This add-on to their conglomerate. And also, again, fucking... It never ends. Literally not even within less than half a block radius of one another. It's not a far distance at all. Barely any. They're so tightly and neatly compact in the entire downtown area of Gatineau. I swear to God. Wow. Just genuinely wow. From the looks of it, that's not even upper middle class. That's just wealth. That's just rich. All along here. And up here. All down there. That's just wealth. Fencing, of course. Chain link. Right next, though, to what appears to be, in terms of, again, just external structuring, and from certain accessories I can see some people wearing. And again, obviously, when I say these things, these videos, obviously there's no definitive look to any, well, one person's financial class. There's no definitive look, especially in terms of poverty. But there is, though, you can get a general consensus off of certain things that there's a theme of, and what people in a certain community are wearing in terms of the quality of something, at least as far as I'm concerned. But again, just assessment of this area looks to be more bordering, well, I guess, between standardized and lower middle class. Probably standardized, similar to the ones down there. But again, fencing all around. And from what it looked like over there, I think I saw a privatized property sign displayed. Again, similar to the Huron Gate Ghetto in Ottawa. So, okay. Oh, and of course, does that say Remax? Yeah, that definitely does. Okay. Oh, what's that? I don't know if that's saying no video footage of property, or if it means that there's active street cameras. Probably the latter. If not, oh well. And oh my God. Well, I'm up for the challenge, but fuck is that gonna suck. But not as much as a duck is gonna have a stroke of luck after I fuck his puck. I'm done. Another fucking apartment condo contractor. I'm assuming that advertisement is placed there because that area of land, at some point in the distant or even maybe near future, they're gonna begin production. Another fucking mass concrete structure project. Oh my God. Yeah, this entire area is very wealthy. Even those smaller homes, they're incredibly well maintained, well designed externally. God, look at over there. It's more, I guess, kind of appears to be maybe central to Eastern European architecture. Romanian maybe? I don't know. Looks similar to it though, from what I've seen, just culturally. Okay. This is actually going to be dreadful, and I have to pee. So, this is not going to be fun at all. That person walking down the hill in the neon safety vest just offered to help me push my cart up the hill about halfway up. That's the third time someone has done that, and I'm incredibly thankful and grateful to them for it. It's incredibly nice, caring thing to do. Help me push it all the way to this pole. Incredibly nice. And look, you can see over there, I believe, some of the Hall district, and then over there, actually, that might also be the eastern half of Hall. I don't exactly, you might be able to faintly see some skyscrapers of downtown Ottawa across the river, but I can't completely tell from this distance. Also, I guess I should clarify for something I said yesterday in the clips that'll be at the beginning of this video. When I was talking about how the address those intake workers for the homeless shelter gave me, it was in Hall, and how I wasn't going to walk all the way back there because it was way too far. Technically, where I came from when I got off the connecting bridge, that was Hall, but it was the very, very easternmost corner of the district, right by, well, the park that I took to enter into the other district, which I don't know, or the neighborhood that I don't know the name of, and then going over another bridge to get into Promendez. So, should just thought I'd clarify that. Oh wow, it's a pretty nice view from there. Oh well, shit. It is a nice view until I take a look to my left and see that. That's not nice. That's not a pretty view at all. At all. Again, sharp cutoff in general maintenance. Alright, officially out of the downtown area and in a district that, if I'm looking at the map correctly, is called, I'm at the edge of a district called Du Versant, I believe. Du Versant, the Du Versant district. And, well, even though I'm out of the downtown area, yeah, I think you know what I'm gonna say. So, but I'm also looking at the map, and apparently I overshot my trajectory of what street I was actually trying to get to go down to head to the opposite end of what would also then be counted as the downtown area, or the edge of it, of the main strip of road that I could have kept walking along the main strip of road to get to, but no, I wanted to be adventurous, because yeah, that's that. I'm gonna head down here and then go all the way around and then back down to a street called Romaine. Yeah. Let's see what comes of that. Well, this is a very neat design. It's very intricate. Let's put in front. I can't read this, obviously. March 2016. It's incredibly well made. I don't know for what purpose it was made, but maybe to commemorate different, I guess, cultural, educational backgrounds. Potentially. But it's very neat. It's right outside of I think, just a standard public school. Unless this is a private school. Actually, it might be a private school. Potentially. I'm going to get off the property just in case. So, I'm absolutely in a considerably much wealthier area. Very much. I'm up on, I guess would be considered the highest hill point of Gatineau. And you know what? Just socioculturally speaking, with class structures, I'm not surprised that, well, more high-end value and extremely expensive and bougie housing would be higher up on the hills, overlooking the vast scenery that lies below. Or, for some of them, those who are not indoctrinated into participating and contributing massively to this lifestyle. Well, those who are malicious, looking down on their, well, economic creations. So, oh, that's interesting. Not so pristine after all. Okay. The road I'm trying to get to should be, well, I think actually probably quite a ways down, but, I don't know. I am just going to keep walking until I reach it. It is remaining and proving to be a considerably much nicer day than it has been recently. So much so I removed my jackets. So, that's a positive. But, oh, yes. Before I talk about something else I wanted to talk about, let's get that ways. I should probably clarify something when I was back when I was talking about how Gatineau, for a large part, is just a stop-by city on most people's ways to Ottawa. To be fair, somewhat. In terms of tourist attractions, the one major one that in my first part of exploring Gatineau I passed by, and you can see that would, fair to say, that has a portion of international visitors to it as well, is the landmark, well, the landmark being the National History Museum of Canada. I believe that's what that very, well, dome-shaped, elongated oval, low to the ground, looks like a piece of bread dough with sort of teal roofing building that's right at the southernmost point of Gatineau, at the main central connecting bridge between downtown Ottawa and southern Gatineau. The one that's right by the Mammon spider statue and the National Canadian Art Gallery. That one. But even in saying that, that's usually most often probably only draws the most tourists from those who are in Ontario visiting Ottawa and just so happen to be by the riverside and like, hey, that's the Quebec province over there that predominantly speaks a variant of French. So, and there's this history museum that seems to be the most famous landmark. Let's go explore it just quickly and then come back over the bridge. That's typically, from what I can tell, the most like active tourism that Gatineau seems to get. Should have clarified that. So no, I did. Okay, my phone is dying. So once I get up a ways a bit, I'll give it some charge and then keep trying to get to where I'm trying to get to. Langolier Road. Well, let's hope it doesn't scare any little girls. Someone, I swear to God, better get that fucking reference, I swear. Well, the nice weather, it seems, has come at a bit of a price. Because I don't know if you can tell, maybe if I turn away from the light. Or if I turn into the light. Wait, turn the camera away from the light. I have gotten a bit of a sunburn across my face. And I'm just using my hoodie to kind of act as a shield from the UV rays. I feel like a vampire quivering away from the damn light. So, what to talk about? Well, it's a topic I want to touch on that I think I will talk about it after I visit the strip club. And when I go inside, I'm not going to this time record from within my pocket. I'm actually gonna, well, if they have bouncers there, or just whatever staff, I'm gonna ask if it's alright if I actually get footage from within, well, the club, if that's allowed, if that's alright. As well as, well, if anyone in particular wants to get in the video, or just, well, want to be filmed, obviously I'll ask for their consent to do so. But if not, if I'm not allowed to, then I'm not even going to bother filming inside it. But, I guess, well, I should address this, considering, given my location now being in the province of Quebec, I should probably, and I don't believe I fully, not to my recollection, I didn't fully go much in depth about this topic when I first visited Gatineau about 5 months ago. That being, what exactly do I mean when I keep referring to the language, the variant of French being spoken here, predominantly being called Québécois French? Or, I guess more specifically, who are the Québécois? Well, I'll just briefly explain. So, this is for anyone who's, more so any international viewers of mine who don't know much about, the multiculturalism one of Canada and, the genuine attempts at multiculturalism, not the fake performative bullshit. But, anyway, just for anyone who's international who doesn't know, the Québécois, or just being Québécois, is a white ethnic group that is, that predominantly inhabits, and in terms of where the cultural traditions formed out of, majority of southern and southeastern Quebec, the Canadian province of Quebec. Though, obviously, there is spread of influence of the ethnicity and cultural traditions associated to it up in northern Quebec as well. But going further up into northern Quebec, you get into the higher populations of Québécois Métis populations. And Métis, for those of you who don't know, is a white ethnic groups, or racially white, someone being of European descent, having a child with someone of North American, or specifically in this instance, Canadian Indigenous heritage. So, and the person's, race, background, would be considered Métis, being a mix of European background and Indigenous Canadian background. But, crossing. In regards to the language of, firstly, the ethnicity and cultural traditions came about back about, I want to say, roughly 3 centuries ago, before the official formation of the Dominion of Canada, which was the autonomous state of England up until 1982, with the creation of the Charter and Rights and Freedoms. Let me rephrase that. The creation of the falsified Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the actual Charter of enslavement to authoritarianism. Or, more specifically, authoritarianism, republicanism. That's a better way to put it. And, neoliberalism and neoliberal fascism, but I digress. Anyway. About maybe 3 centuries ago, when French colonists arrived, I believe they had initially come up through the St. Lawrence River, landed in what is now modern-day Quebec City, and Lévis, then migrated inward throughout, well, west throughout southern Quebec, caused a whole bunch of, well, mass destruction to indigenous land, and colonized the areas, and destroyed and betrayed treaties that had been negotiated between, well, the French settlers and the native peoples. So, there's that. But at the time, it had been declared as being, well, what is now, well, this half of Quebec, all the way up to Quebec City, and then maybe a bit further to the small city of, I believe it's called Rimouski. It begins with an R and it has a ski. It has ski in it, in its name. It's on the little, I believe it's on the, hair, get out of my mouth. The peninsula that's, the little thin handle-looking peninsula of eastern Quebec. But anyway, I think that's where it's expanded out to. It was declared, or was originally called, New France. And at the time, if I'm remembering my history correctly, for maybe the span of 5 or 7 years, that car was stuck for a second. The English colonizers and French colonizers didn't actually know that their land regions were in such close proximity to each other, or potentially they didn't even know that each other had actually landed on, well, this portion of the North American continent, which is now this area of modern-day Canada. I forget which one. I think the first one is probably more likely. And it might have been because of, well, false attempts at negotiations with the indigenous peoples going further up from on the English side of things, from the British colonists. It might have been through word of mouth and fake trade negotiations, insincere attempts at them, with no intention of actually, well, abiding by said negotiations, that they found out about the, well, further expansion of New France into what was, by what they claimed to be their territory after they, well, colonized the land and stole it. So basically, that kicked off, it might have kicked off a mini war within, well, between New France and then the English colonizers, who I believe both sides enlisted, or more so either coerced or full-blown, either persuaded or full-blown physically forced, or attempted to physically force the indigenous natives into helping fight in the small, well, battle or conflict between the settlements. But skipping over a bit of history, because I need to brush up on it, about maybe the early 1800s, what is now the northern part, well, what makes up northern Ontario, Canadian province of Ontario, which includes Ottawa especially, and what is, well, again, this entire area spanning up to Quebec City, and what, again, I'm thinking is called the city of Rimouski. In the early 1800s was formed into the two separate Commonwealth, well, no. Well, actually, yeah, it might have been part of, well, New France might have been part of the French Commonwealth under French monarchical rule. Anyway, it formed the territories of Lower Canada and Upper Canada were formed governmentally, which is pretty ironic. Well, in this part of history, it's pretty ironic because Lower Canada, which is this modern-day area of Quebec, was actually higher than, geographically speaking, higher than Upper Canada, and Upper Canada, which is the northern portions of Ontario, the modern day, was lower geographically than Lower Canada. Makes sense? No? Got it? Good. Yeah, that's how that went. Yeah, I don't know the logic behind that one. From the European powers. But cutting forward a bit from that, eventually, somehow, and I don't remember how at all, more northern territory, what now makes up northern Quebec, was amalgamated into Lower Canada, and then it eventually adopted the name of Quebec, or in Québécois French, Quebec, how it's pronounced. And then Ontario came into fruition sometime around, well, that same, I believe the same time frame, somewhere around there. And then they were both conjoined into becoming provinces of the Dominion of Canada, and then other provinces began to, well, come into creation, or borders were drawn territorially, and provincial governments were formed, and then the acknowledged territories of the North were formed at some point, with Nunavut being the last administrative district of Canada to actually, well, in terms of, well, provinces and territories, it was the last one to be formed in 1999, because prior to that, there were only two Canadian territories, being, well, those being Yukon and Northwest Territories. And Nunavut was a part of Northwest Territories, which, at the time, made Northwest Territories the biggest, well, administrative district in terms of land in all of Canada, but now Nunavut, land-wise and territorially, including the Hudson's Bay, well, it's the largest, with Quebec being the largest province, land-wise. So, I did not miss the street I was trying to get to, did I? No, I don't think I did. Not again, hopefully. Yeah, I think that's it up there. So, going back now again, ever since the first few, interactions between the militant powers of, what would become Ontario and then Quebec. Well, there had been high tensions for many decades culturally between the rest of Canada and the province of Quebec, mainly because of, in terms of white cultural heritage, majority of the rest of Canada, in terms of the white populaces that had, descended from the colonizers, basically had predominantly been of Anglo-Saxon, heritage for the most part, and just general British, ethnic descent, and Irish as well, and Northern Irish. Whereas what has become the Québécois ethnic group, obviously, culturally, heavy similarities to Western Europe, yes, but, Franco-Western Europe, especially, France, and similarities as well, in terms of cultural heritage relating to Belgium, and I want to say as well Luxembourg, but I could be iffy on that one. I have to check. But absolutely, obviously, France. French culture. Which, despite the tensions that rose, especially during the 1970s in Canada, between the rest of Canadian culture and Québécois Canadian culture, it actually, from what I know of certain aspects of Québécois culture, amalgamated aspects of, Anglo-Saxon European culture into it, but, let's not get into the hypocrisy exactly on that right now. But anyway, I'll skip to the most known part about Quebec's history. I'm running over children's chalk drawings. I don't want to do that. I'm gonna move over here. Oh, I didn't damage them too bad. Okay. So, beginning in the early 1970s, mass ethno-political tensions started to rise within Canada, and between the Québécois, obviously I'm not trying to generalize here, but between many organizations that were of majority Québécois descent, and organizations and groups outside of the Québécois ethnic group, as well in Quebec and also outside of Quebec, but for the most part outside of Quebec, for those that were not Québécois. But basically, from the 1970s in through to the 1980s, and going into the early 1990s, but it started to die down very much more so in the late 1980s and very much in the early 90s. Mass separatist groups began to arise within Quebec. Very much nationalist groups, in many regards, for calling for independent Quebec governmental sovereignty, and, well, many, again, adopting the, well, form of racism known as nationalism, as far as I'm concerned, adopting a staunch superiorization of Québécois ethnicity. And the same can be said for other ethnic groups outside of Quebec, also adopted heavy nationalist sentiment in wanting to keep Quebec as a part of Canada's total geography, and superiorizing their, their own white ethnicities over, that of Québécois. I'm gonna have to look on a map. I don't see any road signs. Great. I'll finish what I'm talking about here. So, this is the most famous part of what, even I guess I would say, a certain amount of people who are even just vaguely familiar with Canadian history internationally know about Quebec having heavy, calls for separation politically from the rest of Canada in the 1970s and 80s. And, this resulted in a lot of, discrimination and bigoted actual attacks on varying people of all sorts of different racial backgrounds. I believe there were, I could be wrong about this, but I believe there was at least 2 or 3 instances of car bombs going off. I believe 2 in Ontario and 1 actually in Quebec. I could be wrong about that, and I could be wrong about the locations of that. I'm pretty sure 1 at the very least was in Quebec. Probably Montreal, but nonetheless. High ethnic tensions. And this was at the time, in terms of government, the rise of Pierre Trudeau, who is the modern day Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's father. He was Prime Minister long before his son took office. I think that's my thought process right now, he was just as corrupt and terrible. I used to have better sentiments towards him when I was younger, but no, not anymore at all. Anyway, that's a whole different story. He advocated heavily, and as far as I'm concerned, performatively, for better integration in the rest of Canada of Québécois cultural traditions in terms of just education. And it was around during the time, I believe, of his rule, or his seat in office, that it was decreed that all packaging in Canada has to be labeled in both English and French, or Québécois French, and that it has to be starting from, right now, if I'm not mistaken, it starts from 4th grade and then continues upward into high school, where you then in 10th grade have the choice of switching out secondary languages, but it's French class is regulated in the Canadian educational system nationwide, and that was sworn in, I believe, that was enacted by Pierre. And that led into some issues because for a long while, I think it wasn't until the early to mid 2000s that they weren't actually in for the schooling system, like in all provinces and territories nationwide other than Quebec. They weren't actually teaching Québécois French, the Québécois variant of the French language. They were actually teaching European French, like France French. And that sparked enrage in a lot of people. I believe there was a lot of peaceful protests that happened in the early 2000s of like saying, actually, not mass violent riots like compared to what the 1980s and 70s were, but just peaceful demonstrations in terms of like physically non-violent demonstrations of like actually properly integrate Québécois French into the educational systems, not the Parisian metropolitan French. And then eventually they did, and now they do actually teach Québécois French in the classes. But so coming to, well, in the 1990s, was it the 80s, in the 1980s, the then premier of the province of Quebec, I forget his first name, but Lebec, I believe his name was, an absolute corrupt, egotistical, eccentric jackass as far as I'm concerned. Even worse than, in many regards, worse than Pierre. He fueled the fire of like nationalist sentiment and separatist sentiment for a lot of the groups that were for total Quebec sovereignty. There was a time where it was offered up that Quebec actually become a autonomous state of Canada, basically, put it in complete layman's terms, a country owned by another country, where it had a complete executive rights over most of its like national laws that were, well, legislatively written in, but governmentally for foreign affairs, military intervention and things, or just military exercises, and also trading in terms of imports and exports. It would all have to be regulated through the overshadowing government, national government force of Canada. But the separatist groups were not going for that at all. A majority of them weren't, and they were like, nope, complete independence or nothing else. Or I actually don't know what they were going to do or what many of them were claiming to do. Here's an interesting thing, though, sadly, that fueled a lot of anti-socialist and anti-communist sentiment during that time, because at that time as well the first Cold War was happening, and the dying down of but still present Red Scare was happening in the West. Basically, it became very apparent that certain separatist groups within Quebec were socialist groups, or they were advocating for a socialistic economic policy to be put in place if Quebec was to become sovereign. And they were actually, then they were, from what I've looked up, like genuine separatist groups. They followed the more like Marxist socialist beliefs. I don't believe a lot of them followed the belief of Lenin, the ideology of Leninism, but definitely Marxist beliefs of instigation of dictatorship of the proletarian, and, well, some form of government, of that being a stance of authoritarian governmental rule to some degree, at least as far as I'm concerned with that. Some of them might even been calling for just a Republican government system in Parliament, their own Parliament, but they were advocating for, well, redistribution of financial wealth and working class control over the decisions and policies of manufacturing and labor and things of the sort. and ownership just entirely of the means of their labor. So, and also redistribution based according to what is needed for a sector of the economy. So, anyway, that was utilized against the rising to far leftist movements of the 1980s for anti-Marxist and anti-Egalitarian, anti a whole bunch of just leftist ideologies in favor of neoliberalism and neoliberal fascism. And I'm not defending the actions, as far as I'm concerned, of many of the separatist groups, even that identified ideologically as being socialist. I agree with, obviously, many elements of that aspect of their ideologies, but as far as I'm concerned, they were still very, they were authoritarian in nature in what they were proposing, and also, engaged in unempathic outlooks on the other side, which I do not like. But anyway, so fast forwarding, I'm just going to fast forward all the way to now. Tensions have completely died down in terms of political discourse on a major scale, in terms of government. So basically, yes, there is still, obviously, as far as I'm concerned, there is mass cultural ignorance and racial prejudice that persists against both the Québécois and also from the Québécois towards different white ethnicities outside of Quebec and even inside Quebec. Especially, there's still and I've somewhat noticed it here with my short time being in Gatineau, not anything blatant, subtle from the looks of it, just a discontent towards this is one of the main predominant things, discontent towards not speaking in Québécois French when being here, which I'm sorry I have no skills in at all. Actually, when I was getting ready to leave Ottawa, for about 2 months before me leaving, I had been practicing the slightest bit of French skills just to prepare myself. And I learned, I guess I'm impressed. I learned, let's see, I can count them off the top of my head. 1, 2, 3. I learned how to say 3 things in French. Je m'appelle pas Francis. Anglais. Or, désolé, je n'appelle pas le Français. Anglais. Or, actually, what's just predominantly, apparently, usually more common in Québécois French, je ne comprends pas. So, yeah, that's what I learned. It's actually been very useful. That's all I've said to anyone I've talked to first, is just je ne parle pas français, anglais, and they immediately, most of them have immediately switched to speaking English, because thankfully it might geographically right now just be because of the Gatineau's location so close to a predominantly English-speaking city, that being Ottawa, that many people here socioculturally know how to speak English. I'm probably going to have trouble with that once I get out into the rural areas, and maybe as well even when I reach Laval, Montreal, and Longueuil, and then further out into the countryside again, and then to Lévis, and then Quebec City. Probably going to have a bit more issues, but maybe not. I'll see. And obviously, this is not me blaming anyone, because that would be racist in and of itself. Obviously, as far as I'm concerned, I should not expect them, I and no one else should expect anyone in Quebec to know how to speak English. And oh my god, those robins are flying very close to the ground. And anyone in Quebec should not expect me or anyone else coming into Quebec to know how to speak Québécois French. I think that should be a given. Just, you shouldn't expect anyone, because that is just, it's complete racism to expect anyone to just have the knowledge of speaking a language. That's not possible. It's a learned ability. It's a learned cognitive ability, as language information and understanding and recollection and formation of word occurs within the frontal cortex of our cerebrums, and also in correlation with the prefrontal cortex for word storage and word memory in relation to what language we have predominantly grown up with, or if we become bilingual or multilingual, or if we're a polyglot. So I haven't run into any issues yet, any major issues, but I'm sure I will at some point. I don't know if you could hear it. Just some teenagers in a car driving away again. That gave me deja vu back to my very first Exploring Ottawa video. I'm not going to explain what happened, just go watch it. Yeah. Driving to a song. Okay, so, yeah, that's... Oh, and here's a little interesting fact about the Québécois ethnicity. Any American viewers, you're probably familiar with the French-speaking ethnicity that predominantly inhabits southeastern United States, mainly in the bog or the more very rural, deep wood swamp areas of the South, the Cajun ethnicity. Well, actually, because a lot of people know that they have French-oriented heritage. Actually, but people mix up that they think that the Cajuns have direct European French heritage. Actually, they don't. Majority of them actually don't. Apparently, many, well, about probably 2 centuries ago or so, back during the formation of, what would have been called Lower Canada, so modern-day Quebec, the lower portions of Quebec. I don't know through what context, what happened historically, but around that time, a large portion of, people who were of Québécois ethnicity they immigrated from Upper Canada down to the southern United States, and they formed their own new cultural traditions and things of the sort, and actually became the Cajuns, or the Cajun ethnicity. So, yeah, the Cajuns don't descend from European French heritage. They descend from Québécois Canadian heritage. Yeah. Oh, and that might have been around the time of, maybe during or post Louisiana Territory purchase by the newly forming American government. Further forming after the Revolutionary War. I'm muddled with that one, but that's just an interesting little fact there. The Cajuns are descendants of Québécois. Anyway, another tidbit I will share, why a lot of people for years have criticized me on this. I think, unfairly, as it's pretty ignorant, I would say. A lot of people often refer to of all different racial backgrounds outside of Quebec refer to Québécois as French Canadians. And a lot of people always told me, or asked me, why do you not just say French Canadian? Why do you say Québécois? Why don't you just say in English French Canadian? Well, because me being a geography buff, as far as I'm concerned, that's a misleading term as far as I'm concerned, because, well, with the existence of French Canadian or Canadian French dual nationality dual nationality or dual citizenship. So that's misleading as far as I'm concerned, because nationality-wise, it's entirely separate. And also, that sounds very, as far as I'm concerned, dubbing the Québécois ethnicity to be French Canadian, it sounds a little, it has always to me, and from what I've researched of different people who are of Québécois ethnicity and their opinions on this, it's pretty, what's a good word I could use? Well, it could be quite demeaning, quite, as if, they're not, well, demeaning in the sense as if they're like second-rate Europeans almost. I don't know, I don't mean that in any sort of derogatory way, I just don't have a better way of, well, putting it, which is completely untrue as far as I'm concerned. And that is absolutely racist, beyond shadow of a doubt. But as far as I'm, sorry. So, a proper way to refer to these people, the, well, white Quebec ethnicity, is Québécois Canadian. Just don't call them French Canadian. Call them Québécois Canadian, or just call them Québécois, because that's what they are. So, and obviously, most people who say French Canadian do not mean it out of any sort of malice, as far as I'm concerned. Are there bigots, those who are bigoted and sociopathic and dismissive who do? Yes. But I'm just saying a majority of people don't. So, just bear that in mind as well, any Québécois viewers of this. So, yeah. So that was my little telling the history of the white Canadian ethnicity of Québécois, which is the predominant white ethnicity of southern Quebec, and also the predominant white ethnicity of northern Quebec too, and western and eastern. But nonetheless, it's, yeah, that was just it. I'm going to figure out what friggin' intersection I'm standing on, and then walk as I've been doing. Alright, so this is Roumaine. This is the right road. Okay. So, next thing I'll address, as I feel I should. If any of you remember, about pretty well 3 months ago now, I posted the 2 videos of, well, titled A More Proper Introduction to Myself, because I feel it was needed, where I detailed my, well, pretty well life history up until this point, because I hadn't really done so in great lengths that I felt would have been beneficial before. And oh my, how steep are you? I'll find out when I get to you. I want my cart here to go tumbling down. That's the last thing I want. But I want to keep recording. Well, anyway, if you haven't watched those videos, go watch them. I'm not explaining anything. But basically, I stated that I made a decision to cut off contact with my parents for however long the duration of this trek I'm on is. Because of strife they had caused me in the past. They hadn't seemed to be, despite one of them finally seeing a psychologist, on my recommendations. It didn't seem like anything was truly, any beneficial change was happening. And I just said, even if I was to see beneficial change, which I think this was an idiotic decision of me, that I would just leave them to their own devices. I wouldn't call them. I wouldn't answer their calls or texts if they had attempted to phone or text me, because I'm now on my own cell providing plan. Well, about 2 days before I left the place that I was predominantly staying for my time in Ottawa, I decided to... We'll just stop for a second. I decided to phone one of them and talk with them. And it went incredibly pleasantly. Far better than I was expecting. And then I also spoke to my other parent, and it also went far better than I was expecting it to. And then throughout the days that I've been, when I made my travels all the way from the Orleans district of Ottawa to the Byward Market area, I had been keeping in contact with them and actually speaking to them over the phone. And it was, as far as I'm concerned, fantastic to actually hear genuine change and actual improvement, especially in just at the very least in the way we engage with each other in terms of communication. And I can now say that I've revoked that goal of mine to not keep in contact with them. I will be keeping in contact with them. And all I can say is I'm genuinely very thrilled that I actually was able to hear actual improvement. This'll. Well, I'm very proud of them, is all I could say. And I'm very happy. My parents are quite older than most people's parents that are my age. Now, obviously, I don't believe that has any bearing on whether or not you can psychologically become self-aware of problems you're causing. But unfortunately, what ends up happening a lot of the time is that, well, many people in that age range in the world, sadly, just no, this is gonna, well, no, I don't want it to sound ageist, but become, I guess, further integrated into their already their pre-made conceptions of things. And I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can get a better view. And just, well, I'm glad that I'm seeing improvement. A lot of it. And if they're watching this, well, I also, given the fact that you demonstrate that you are actually changing or trying to change, well, I do love you again. And, well, I hope things just continue to improve on both our parts. That's all I can, I guess, think of to say right now. I'm still not coming back to Toronto, by no means. They were not the main reason that I left at all. And I don't think most people understood that. Still don't understand that. Who I keep in contact, or who I did keep in contact with, especially my idiotic extended family. Who have, all of them have a lot of, well, those who betrayed my trust have a lot of self-reflection to do. A lot. A lot. But, well, I don't think most of them understood that that was not the main reason I left the city, and I'm not going to go in again, over and over again. How many times I have to say why I left the city? Because of an existential crisis and a morality crisis. That's why. And to see how this world genuinely operates, and if there's any semblance of genuine way back to a beneficial way of life from all this nonsense. So, I will be remaining in contact with all my immediate family members, my parents and my sibling, which I never cut off my sibling. But, well, I'm glad some amount of amends has been made. And right now, and well, even if we were to have another falling out at some point in the future, me not ever returning to Toronto, if I never do, is not because of you. I'll just say that. Me never returning to whatever house that you, my parents, may live in at whatever time, well, that's a different story. And even right now, even though we've made amends, well, I don't know if I would return to whatever household you live in at whatever time, for some different reasons, but, well, I don't know. But just know, if I never return to Toronto again, it's not because of you. It's not. And same goes to my sibling. It's absolutely not because of you. I love all of you. As of right now. And I hope it stays that way till my dying days. Or your dying days. Okay, I'm gonna get this cart. I'm gonna attempt to get this cart down here. You know what? First, I'm gonna move these damn branches that have fallen on the only visible, clear sidewalk path to get down there. And then what I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna swivel my cart around and hold it by the handle and just let it roll backwards down as I hold on to it, so that I can actually properly have a good maneuvering, hopefully a good maneuvering system with it. So let me do that. And I really hope, because I'm taking into account now the it's getting to dusk. I really hope that damn laundromat is open, the one that is by the strip club that I was also trying to get to. That was, oh my god, I nearly slipped. That's the reason. I have absolutely no clue if they were shouting at me or not. I don't care. I really hope it's open, because obviously it's not going to be a pointless journey, because I wanted to check out the actual club, but I also would have liked to wash the dirty clothes of mine and my sleeping blanket. So yeah, I should stop talking and actually see if it's still open. I'm going to go do that. That was an incredibly trying and unbelievably stupid process that I never want to repeat again. As you can tell, calloused, beet red hands, blood. Always a good combination. You suck for your non-cooperation for something that was seemingly going to work well enough. I was dumb enough to think that it was just going to be a smooth ride down. I should have tried finding a lower, less of an incline route to get down here. But nonetheless, I'm down here. So getting towards down there is going back to what would be the edge, or close to the edge, of the downtown area. And right now, this entire area where the club is and where the cleaners is in a district called, I believe, de Lac Beauchamp. Also, I really hope that the "de" in a lot of the naming for the districts isn't the French or the Québécois French word for "of." Because if it is, I'm gonna sound very stupid in how I'm pronouncing it. I would be saying, basically, in Québécois French, the district of Versant, or the district of Premandez, or Promandez. Yeah, I really hope not. But anyway, I really hope that laundromat is open still. Oh, that's a pretty shot of the sky. So, just on first impressions, again, infrastructurally, this area is not looking great. It doesn't look near as bad as Promendas, at least the main road did, as far as I'm concerned, for the most part. But it definitely is seeming to be more of lower middle class, bordering on impoverished in terms of maintenance and, well, general attire of people, well, general atmosphere from what it looks like in terms of financial stability. But it's a very, very nice sunset out right now. So, this is the main road of Lac Béchamp, or the Lac Béchamp area. And, well, it's very quiet right now. There's what looks to be an overpass down there. I have an idea of where I'm going to sleep tonight. There's a park within the district nearby. But I'm also, once I just took a minute to observe the general location, starting to pick up on another thing that is apparent with the location structuring of this area. I'll talk about it in a minute once I get over there. Aha, yes, I found the fucking laundromat, and according to their sign, they are open. Apparently, I guess there's a dentist shop, or a dentist office right above the laundromat. But first, before I go in, so, what I'm picking up on. This area, this district, borders the downtown area, and to the east, from where I'm, well, no, still the east, to my current left, but geographically to the east of this district is a district known as Templeton, which encompasses, I believe, majority of the eastern half of Gatineau. Something I noticed, though, as well, especially from walking out of the downtown area, the downtown area specifically of Gatineau is pretty, well, it's pretty suburbanized in terms of just how housing is set up, with mainly townhomes actually just really encompassing, or being in very close proximity to the main strip of road with the mass amounts of megacorporate branches, which I just find interesting somewhat. And again, as far as I'm concerned, there's pseudo-segregation going on. But I'm noticing that there, and I also noticed on the map, there are far more small business companies in this district that, well, this one that comes close to bordering the downtown area than actually in the downtown area, compared to, like I said, to that of all the other cities I've been in on this journey. Toronto, Peterborough, and Ottawa, obviously, have had, at the very least, some amount of a mix between gentrifying megacorporations and small businesses. But regardless, regardless of the fascistic economics, they've still had them. Whereas here in the city of Gatineau, it's almost non-existent in terms of small independent businesses in the downtown area compared to what is, in terms of this district, the outskirts of the downtown area. So, oh, there's the club as well. Convenient. So, what it seems to be happening, and I won't fully form this hypothesis of mine until in the next video, which will be hopefully, well, yes, it will be the last video that I make in Gatineau, whether I'm still here afterwards, where I'm gonna go and actually explore the very much more high-end wealth and elitist areas of the house in terms of housing of the city in the downtown area that was just adjacent to the main strip of road, opposite to that of the giant shopping center that was bordering Promendaz. I'm gonna go explore that and see what I can gather. But what seems to be happening is what I was saying is that right now, at least, a lot of any amount, literally any amount of small business has been or is being pushed, like in terms of privatization of land, to open up their businesses, is being pushed out of the actual center of the city to make room for larger to moderate corporations to come in to appeal to passerby travelers. As I said, Gatineau is more so, it seems to be, a pass-through city on the way to, well, Ottawa. But that's just the general idea I'm forming right now. So how exactly? I can come up with probably a few ideas, but right now I'm going to actually go wash my clothes, and I'll form more of that theory in the next video when I get back down to that area of the downtown area. Okay, and I need to charge my phone again, so I'll do that. You lied to me, how could you? Okay, just literally walking down the block, like a bit more from the intersection I was at. Infrastructure just took an incredibly big downfall. Incredibly big. I don't know if you can tell. It's tanked. Very much so. Very much. But interestingly enough, I'm looking at that house over there on the other side of this chain fence. That looks incredibly well maintained. And incredibly, well, in terms of affordability for something of that design, seems to be more of, actually, mixing of modern, I guess, American and Japanese style architecture with the windows? Maybe. Far more expensive in terms of value. And again, that seems to be an immediate divide. So before I go into the actual club, and I will ask what those two seem to be workers of the establishment, I'm going to ask if I can actually record in there. I want to just go over to that block and actually see if it is like a really sharp divide in, well, maintenance. So let me just check that out. Oh, holy shit. Yeah, that's all along here, this row of houses. Far more well maintained. Far more. And from what I'm noticing down there, as well as pretty well, looks to be well maintenanced over there. That's an immediate divide again. Literally, that's actually out of all the places I've traveled in terms that have these sharp cutoffs in infrastructure, especially when I was in Ottawa, surrounding the Northern Vanier ghetto and the Huron Gate ghetto, and compared to what I've seen here in Gatineau, that's probably, it's literally from right over there to there. That is probably the closest divide I've ever seen. It's being cut off by, well, this relatively well-maintained building here looks to be an apartment building. And, well, just this back area over here with the fencing and the placement of these, well, these building structures that seem to be, have been designed for businesses to lease out. So yeah, incredible divide. Like, very closely knit, closely compacted divide. Okay, I'm gonna go into the club now. Well, that was an interesting endeavor. So, atmospherically, it was pretty nice. Well, okay, I don't know if you could tell, that I'm not typically, I guess, into the rave scene, I guess, or in terms of the mood itself. I can't really emulate it, I guess. But in terms of the communal aspect of it, once again, there was a very big sense of, well, camaraderie in there. Now, that being said, unlike the other club I went to, Le Club Pigalle, this one, Bar 77, there was a little bit more of a tolerance towards, well, patriarchal consumption and objectification of the performers. There was a little bit more tolerance to that. Well, actually, compared to the other club, I guess maybe I'd say quite a lot more. But, well, overall, it was a very enjoyable experience. I didn't get a dance this time. I just watched, and the performances were amazing. Incredibly well coordinated. The last performance was, well, the girl performing, she seemed to be a little nervous, or at the very least, just, well, she was a little discoordinated. I don't know why. Maybe she was new, or maybe, well, obviously there's a possibility that she doesn't actually enjoy the job and is only there for payment, or potentially the presence of attention-seeking personality disorder, which unfortunately not, well, somewhat on some of the performers' part in terms of traits. Well, there was a presence of that from a certain customer. But even so, she still did a great job at trying, at the very least. Even if her moves are not as well maintained, I guess, as the other performers. God, I'm tired. She still, at the very least, she was obviously trying. That's what's important. The DJs, there were two. The later one in the latter half of the night was very bold, very eccentric in terms of describing, well, the performers, but not, again, like the other club, not to the point, at least tonight, of over-exotification or objectification as far as I'm concerned. So that's good. Now, what did I mean by that one customer? Well, there was a certain guy in there who was, how am I going to put this? A attention-seeking, conceited jackass. Is the best way I can put it. My God, any chance he got to have the limelight, he was on it. Oh, and also incredibly misogynistic. Incredibly. No, seriously, I mean it. I swear to Lord above. Every time a performer was on stage, every fucking 12 seconds, it was a fucking extremely loud wolf call out of his mouth. Just every friggin' 12 seconds. I think I was actually keeping count. Especially when the performer stripped bare naked. And then, oh my god, he went hog wild. And then, and this is rather sad, well, at one point in the night, when there was a certain female performer on stage, well, he just, without even being asked at all, just hopped right up on the stage. He's clearly he's drunk beyond all hell. Might also be high on something. I don't think it's marijuana if he is. And, all yopped up, he got underneath her, and, well, sadly, she played along with it. I don't know her reasons. Could be the same reasons, all the same reasons I stated for the last girl I saw perform. But she started gyrating on his crotch and was very physical with him, and he was just grabbing at her like crazy. He unconsentfully just smacked her upside the ass a few times, and then when he went, but thankfully she had its unspoken clearly boundaries with him, or what she was uncomfortable with, because well, when he went for her tits, she just swatted his hands away. Good on her. And again, I don't know why she even tolerated him coming on there in the first place without even being asked, and being incredibly physically visceral with her. Maybe internalized misogyny, maybe, well, attention seeking, maybe finance, maybe a combination of all three. But either way, her performance, though, was incredible. It was incredibly graceful, incredibly sexually erotic and expressive, and she was fantastic at what she was doing. And that, as far as I'm concerned, that jackass ruined it. But, well, that happens. But in a more, I guess, pleasant bit of news, a different guy who I couldn't tell what he was doing before, he actually, another guy got up on stage a little while later into the night, but he was actually invited on stage because he was close, and he had given one of the dancers, I think it was maybe $10, and they invited him on stage, and he was like, okay. And then he laid down, and they, well, were gyrating on him as well, and just being sexual with them. But they, like, he was actually incredibly respectful. He was not just going completely, well, completely bombastic across their body. He was putting his hands where they directed his hands to, as far as I can tell. And even then, he didn't really touch them much. So, good. That was genuinely nice, and genuinely, well, from a soon-to-be sex worker's perspective, or a sexually promiscuous person's perspective, it was wholesome to see. And, well, it was genuinely very sensual. So, that is a bit of better news. But then, interestingly enough, again, right before I left, a gaggle of people got into a fight, a short fist fight. One came in and sat down next to someone, and they looked surprised to see them. And then that person seemed to be getting very, well, passive towards whatever they were saying, brushing them aside, and they were getting facially more agitated and expressive. And then that person swung at them, and they swung back, and their friend group tried to break it up, and then the bouncer came over and was like, nope, enough. Whoever started, they found out who started, you get out. And they sat back down, and they were like, why? It's like, no, you don't start that here, get out. And then he refused to leave, and the bouncer picked them up and escorted them out. So that sucks that happened. I saw them actually when I when I left. The person who threw the fist and the one who caught the fist, they were actually having a discussion about it outside, or it seemed like a discussion about it, and it was more peaceful than their first go at resolving whatever conflict they had. Obviously they were talking in Québécois French, so I didn't understand what the issue was, but that happened. And about maybe 3 dancers asked me if I wanted a lap dance, and I got talking to them, and I was just like, no, it's okay, I think I'm good for tonight. One of them was trying to be very, I think a bit overly sexually alluring. I told them about how I'm a nomadic traveler, and they asked how long I'm going to be staying in Gatineau, and I said probably only maybe 2 more days, which is true, if I can help it. And they said, oh, well, why don't you have some fun with me before you leave, or why don't we make this night a night to remember? And I was like, no, I think I'm good for tonight. And they were about to go on stage, and I tried telling them, like, it's nothing against you or anything, it's just I'd much rather watch the stage performances. But I don't think they heard me, because the music was blaring. So it was a pretty good experience. Was it better than the other club? No. Again, despite the sense of community, which was fantastic to see, again, just toleration of some over-sexualization and objectification, I was not really a fan of that. At all. Obviously not. Oh, and some of the song choices, not the greatest. One in particular was very misogynoir. Didn't say that right. So, yeah, didn't like that. So, as for just something I guess I'll address it here, because I want to make my way to a park and then get some shut-eye for the night. So, what I wanted to talk about, I guess, just briefly is, in relation to my scientific proposal videos and when I talked about my theory of parental guardianship, and I brought up the fact about, issues relating to, how I believe that parenting should be predominantly anarchistic, or at the very least libertarian in methodology, allowing for the maximum amount of freedom for the child to develop and grow in terms of their social environments, and pretty well no control over them. Absolutely none. Now, I address the issue of a bit of, what about sexually active issues that could arise? Well, I don't at all condone terrible things in terms of, say, if a child was to enter into a pedophilic, amphibophilic hebephilic relationship or engage in any sort of sexual act that way, as those are provably detrimental sexualities, which is unfortunate. But the sad thing is, as far as I'm concerned, I don't believe they can be controlled in any actual beneficial sense. I'm already now an anarchist. I don't believe in any governmental control at all. I think these systems do far more damage to people's, well, incredibly extensive individuality in terms of our 5 inherent human desires. As far as I'm concerned, humanity is far too diverse and far too vast for any system to control. It is. It's far, far too vast and far too individual, which capitalists will argue, oh, that's why the capitalist system works so well. No, it's idiotic. We know that we need the resources that, well, these trade currencies that we use to determine them, well, provide us. We all need them. A hierarchy of wealth leads to less for a certain amount of people who aren't able to obtain said amount of trade currency to actually obtain the needed resources. We know that, as far as I'm concerned, external collectivism would lead to internal individualism. That's, well, I'll get on that at another time. But I wanted to also say, our ideals towards sexual expression in most of the world are screwy, beyond belief. I also talked about this in my theory of dulled vocal orgasm ability as a result of adolescent self-sexual function repression from tabooness in the scientific proposal videos. So, in terms of their me not being for any sort of controlling laws, that also goes for in terms of sex work, sexual performance of, well, people's desires to make content or engage in specific acts. So, to answer a question, I guess, do I think teenagers and children should be allowed to engage, well, make content creation for pornography, or do strip dance work, or operate telephone sex lines, or write erotica and publish it, or engage and also serve as in prostitution? In terms of legalities, yes, I do believe that there is no way to control that to a beneficial extent, as I've said. Now, in terms of things such as pornography and strip dance work and telephone sex operations, do I think they should be engaging in those lines of work as the person producing said content before late teenhood, like 18 to 19, or early 20s, such as 20, 21, 22? No, I don't think they should be. Overall, as I do think that it, well, not waiting to actually partake in that work, would give them more time to actually experiment amongst their own age ranges in terms of, well, sexual exploration, as well as allowing them to actually research the fields of work in terms of, well, yeah, just having a lot of time to research and explore sexually with the already made content by older people in terms of, well, late teens, early 20s. So, no, I do not think that they should be. I think they should wait until they are in their late teens or in their early 20s to begin said work if they so choose to. That's just on a moral choice to not engage with it until then, in terms of, and again, and when I say engage, I have no problem with them actually, like, consuming the content in that regard through video format or things of the sort, or even in terms of live performance. I don't have any problem with them consuming it. In terms of, though, like from just visually watching, in terms of, though, physically being involved with it, I think it'd be better to wait, as it can mitigate to some degree, though not as many people unfortunately would like to believe. It can mitigate, well, more I guess, vulnerability towards certain encroaching individuals, especially in the online world, just to a certain degree. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not a very valid argument to a certain extent, because we know that can happen with adults as well, and it happens multitude of times, all the time. Just as much as, well, manipulation of sexually of children. It happens constantly. So that's really not a valid argument at all. But I still think it can mitigate risk. And in terms of, however, in terms of, say, erotica writing or pornographic artwork, in terms of illustration and drawing, or engaging in prostitution amongst their own age ranges, I don't have any actual problem with that as far as I'm concerned right now. I think that if they're actually, well, at the ages of mid to late teenhood, and they actually want to go into the field of prostitution and engage in sexual acts with people amongst their own age ranges, then so be it. If they need finance and they're trying to do it as a career, well, obviously prostitution is, well, sexual favors for payment. I don't have any problem with that at all for any teenage range. And again, legally, I don't think there's anything that can stop any age range from doing that to a beneficial degree. And same goes for publishing erotic illustrations or erotic writing. Hell, we already know young teenagers make a hell of a lot of erotic writing. Well, at least many of the more nerdy, closeted LGBTQ+ teenagers. But anyway, I don't think it can be controlled, and I think that it could actually be beneficial in terms of their exploration in that regard. Now, people are probably crying, so you're in favor of child pornography and you're in favor of child sex trafficking and child prostitution. Well, if you want to, in terms of the prostitution part, technically, I guess I'm for their ability to do it. And yes, if it's beneficial for them, then yes, I would say go right ahead in terms of prostitution. No, I am not for sex trafficking. I do not condone that in the slightest. It's an abhorrent thing. It's coercion, manipulation, it's forceful authoritarianism, and it's sexual encroachment. There is a difference between sex trafficking and prostitution, despite what people in this world think, and sex work as a whole. There's a difference between that. They can go hand in hand, yes, and many times they do. Sex work and sex trafficking, they are not one and the same. And anyway, in terms, okay, I'm gonna put this into a paint picture. I'm not actually, what am I doing? I'm just gonna state it. If okay, moving on from that. Anyway, I'm just going to state this. If you don't think teenagers of any age should be able to do prostitution amongst their own age ranges for payment, regardless of whether they have a psychological disorder, and that's why they're going towards it, because of sexual oppression or things of the sort, or they're desperate for finances, or they genuinely do care and want to actually engage in sexual connectivity and sensualism for what my theory would be of connective sexual empathy, if they want to do that for human interaction, regardless of which one. If you actually believe that they shouldn't be doing that, well, you should be against them having any sort of retail job at that age, any sort of factory, plantation job, any sort of, well, even going into family work businesses, any sort of restaurant job. You should be against all of that, because that is manual labor of teenagers, 13, 14, 15. It's back-breaking work. It's psychologically draining. It's under the capitalist fascist economy of the world. It's, well, authoritarianism, and it's complete worker exploitation. And if you want to count it as, well, yeah, you obviously, just like we're all enslaved, you can count it as child enslavement and child exploitation in retail work and all the rest. So if you have a problem with that, then you should not be for teenagers in those age ranges at all, doing those physical tasks, as far as I'm concerned. It can be very, very taxing on them. And as far as I'm concerned, for their sexual health, I think it is completely, absolutely, it is beneficial for them to explore during those age ranges. And, well, learn and make mistakes. And that's all that can be done. And as far as I'm concerned, there's also nothing inherently detrimental about them doing said acts for payment with people amongst their own age ranges. Now, obviously, I don't want that to turn into a whole anti-capitalist and objectivist sounding ideal. I am not for teenagers amalgamating as much of their own wealth as possible without any sort of redistribution method to anyone that they care about or any of their community members, or not acting as any sort of, well, maximalist for their ideology. If they have ideologies towards, say, anarchism or libertarianism, I'm not for them not acting as maximalists. So, don't conflate the two. And on a different note, though, what I would like to state to any teenagers out there, or young adults, I guess, coming from someone who wants to be a sex worker and who is sexually promiscuous, polyamorous, I would like to state, give this hand a break, put it in my pocket, that sexuality and sexual expression, sexual sensualism and activity is fantastic. As far as I'm concerned, it's beautiful, it's incredibly, it's beyond emotionally stimulating. I don't have another word for it, and I don't want that to sound like in an addictive sense, which it can become, and in many instances sadly does become, but is not inherently going to cause it. I don't have another word for it. It's emotionally freeing, I guess I'll say, and you feel as though you are connected to another human being in a very intimate way. And, well, again, back to my theory of connective sexual empathy, as far as I'm concerned, it's a feeling of trying to give understanding to someone else or a group of people through a very physically and psychologically powerful sensation, I guess I'll say. And a very done right, or done what I would consider to be morally sound, is a very compassionate act. And it also, if you want to include obviously the physical parts, it feels fantastic. Ejaculation and orgasm feels incredibly, as far as I'm concerned, being kind of sexual and being sexually active feels amazing, euphoric. But that being said, people need to realize that for as wondrous as sex is and sexual intimacy, it's not some godly, I know maybe I made it sound godly, but it's not some godly, incredibly foreign, exotic treat is the best. This is the best I can do with my wording right now. I'm sorry, I'm tired. It's not some, especially in this, I guess I'll call it the high school mentality, it's not this trophy prize to be grasped for at all. Not in the slightest. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, that's rooted in many years of mass spread of psychological patriarchy and toxic masculinity. And then adopting into toxic femininity or psychologic matriarchy of this idea of the tycoon girl boss, that women can be just as vicious and sexually hedonistic as cis men, which is so far from, well, obviously they can. That's absolutely true. It's so far from morally right, though, or beneficial as far as I'm concerned. It's no. And same goes for all the other 71 currently recognized genders. There's, it's a problem as far as I'm concerned in that regard. It's not this be-it-all end-all reward. It's something that, as far as I'm concerned, in a healthy, beneficial way, should be shared amongst people. It should be cherished, and it should be done with compassion to, in a self-maintaining altruistic way, to gratify your own self. But realizing that the other person, the other parties involved, have those same self-needs, and they want that same sexual gratification as you do. So it should be a compassionate act with actual thought put into how you are intimately engaging with someone, not just this self-obsessed hedonist mindset that the fucking world is consumed by. Oh, actually, just recalling now, I don't think I've ever actually mentioned this. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I've briefly mentioned it, like, back when I first stated all the way back when I was in Toronto, when I wanted to be a pornographer. Maybe I said it in my suicidal ideation video, I can't fully recall, but I am still currently a virgin. I still have not lost my virginity. And, well, technically, yes, I haven't lost my virginity. Intercourse-wise, I haven't lost my virginity, and also digital penetration. So, that's the most I'll say of that. But in regards to, where was I going? Oh, yes. I just kind of forgot where I was going with that. Losing your virginity, and I know this is going to sound cliche, it's going to sound like the typical thing that most people my age hear, but it's true. It's not this grandiose thing. It's not. When you lose your virginity, you will lose your virginity. Can you be happy about that? Sure, you can jump for joy. It feels fantastic. Okay, I just had sexual intercourse for the first time, or just engaged sexually for the first time in some way. It was beautiful. It was enlightening. Um, it felt amazing. Or hell, it could have been crap. It could have not gone well. It could have gone completely awry, and you just ended up not, well, having the greatest of experiences in that one moment. But it's not this out of world it's not this outer worldly experience, is what I'm trying to say. Be happy that you lost your virginity, sure, but don't be this like obsessive about it. Like, for example, I'm sure so many people find it maybe strange, like that, in the last video I talked about how I had my first lap dance. And I was not a fan of how it played out, as I discussed, and I regret decisions I made in terms of not sticking to what would logically be my morals on it, and, well, would have gone with someone my own age range rather than somebody older. Regardless, it was an interesting experience, and I didn't make a big hullabaloo about it. The person was trying to be sensual, yes, absolutely, and they did a very, very good job at it. And it was mainly my fault, and a lot of the awkwardness was on my part, as far as I'm concerned. But even if it went fantastically, even if it was an incredible experience that I went through with that other person, and it was incredibly erotic and incredibly stimulating and satisfying, I still wouldn't have made a big thing about it. I wouldn't have drummed up like this wild, inconceivable amount of excitement for what just happened, as if I couldn't fathom what just happened. Well, I can fathom it. It's sex. It's a beautiful thing that's expressed in a variety of ways. But it's also just sex. I know that may sound contradicting, but I mean, it's a fantastic thing. But it's a thing that exists within this realm of existence, and it's something that can be understood and comprehended. It's not something it's something that's both beyond words and also not beyond words. There's my theory of the paradox of existence. So, when you lose your virginity, be happy about it. If you genuinely enjoyed the experience, or be unhappy or you can be happy. This would be ignorant of me to say, even if you find out that you're asexual and you're not sexually attracted to, well, any sort of intimate physical activity, any sort of eroticism. You can be disappointed that, well, the experience wasn't great, but you could also be happy with the fact that, okay, well, now I know that. Now that I've discovered my sexuality, or sexuality can develop and change as far as I'm concerned. Another side note, I used to be of the belief that, the whole, like, oh, you were born with your sexuality, you were born that way. Well, no, that's scientifically inaccurate. You're not born with a sexuality, you're not born with a sexual attraction, and you're not born with a gender expression in your persona or gender identification, despite what the world might think. You develop sexual attraction as you continue to age. And as far as I'm concerned, sexual attraction can also change, just I do believe that many aspects of one's personality, mentality, and behavior in terms of psychology, when recognized, can change as well. Now, does that mean they should change? Absolutely not. I'm not advocating for conversion therapy of any kind. It's an abhorrent practice. I think it should be legal, but it's an abhorrent practice. I'll talk about that in a different video. But the argument in terms, especially in the LGBTQ plus community, I don't think it should be whether, I don't think the argument for trying to get people to understand your perspective and your livelihood, it shouldn't be that, it shouldn't be this idea that you can't change who you are. It should be, I shouldn't have to change who I am because there's provably nothing inherently problematic about this. That, I think, is a far more powerful message than just, I'm stuck like this. And I think it's also a true message. It's scientifically backed. And no, that doesn't mean I'm denouncing the whole slogan of the LGBTQ plus, and the true slogan that love is not a choice. Yes, that's still absolutely true. Love is not a choice. But what many people, very ignorant people in centrist and right-wing communities don't understand very well is that what we mean by love is not a choice. We don't mean that you can't choose who you date or who you have sex with. Of course you can. You can make the moral judgment of who you go, what acts you choose to do. And you can make the cognitive decision of, well, okay, I'll choose to date this person for a while, other than that person, and then I'll have sex with this person. Of course you can choose that. Nothing's stopping you in a ontological sense, as far as I'm concerned, from doing that. Legally, maybe, sure, but in human nature, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. What it means is that you can't choose what you're actually sexually aroused by or romantically attracted to in terms of romantic types. You can't choose that. Even if it can develop into something else, you still can't choose what it really develops into. You can't force it on like you can't force anything on. And once it eventually comes on, well, that's what it is at the moment. You can't flick it on and off like a light switch. And don't use that to spin my words for gender expression and identity. There's a difference between, as far as I'm concerned, physiological gender, which there's provably 71 different variations of, and gender expression, which is the traits associated to your gender identity. So don't confuse those two either. In sexual attraction, you can't just, in terms of your autonomic nervous system and psychosexology, you can't just become aroused. Say you're gay. You can't just suddenly become aroused by a woman. You can't. If you're homosexual, you can't just, okay, now I like women. I can become sexually aroused by women. You can't. You can develop into becoming, say, bisexual, sure. Or you can even develop into becoming heterosexual. And as far as I'm concerned, all sexualities can come about either through familiarization with something as you're growing up in childhood, or sexual trauma and depression, all three. But either way, you can't flick it on and off. That's what it means by love is not a choice. You can choose to date someone who you aren't romantically and or sexually attracted to, but you're not going to be happy in that relationship. You're not going to be. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be locked into something denying your true desires. So that's what love is not a choice means. Okay. Is there anything else I want to say to that? Not right now, no. I'm cold. I'll set up camp at that park and then address one more thing. about how I will be leaving the city of Gatineau. Okay, let me go walk down a ways to find said park. Alright, I know the lighting isn't good, but well, I made it to the park. It's very tiny. It's very cute. But this area of Gatineau, walking down a ways into the subdivisions from where I was, doesn't seem to be the friendliest. But regardless, change of plans though. I'm not going to talk about how I'm getting out of Gatineau tonight. I will leave that for the next video because I think this one has gone on long enough, and it'll probably take me a while to edit and upload once I am in Wi-Fi. So I'm just gonna say goodnight. Sorry if I offended anyone with this video. I hope you learned something from it. Yeah. Night. Late dawns and early sunsets, just like my favorite scene. Then holding hands and life was perfect, just like a bond of screen. And the whole time we'll always giving, counting your face among the living. Up and down escalators, pennies and colder fountains, elevators and half-price sales, trapped in by all these mountains, running away and hiding with you. I never thought they'd get me here, not knowing you changed from just one bite. I fought them all off just to hold you close and tight. But does anyone notice? But does anyone care? And if I had the guts to put this to your head, but would anything matter if you're already dead? And well, should I be shocked now by the last thing you said before I pull this trigger? Your eyes vacant and stained. But does anyone notice? But does anyone care? But does anyone notice? but does anyone care? And well, should I be shocked now by the last thing you said? Is there no room in this hell? There's no room in the next. And would anyone notice if you're already dead? But does anyone notice? But does anyone care? But does anyone notice? But does anyone care? But does anyone notice? There's a corpse in this bed.